This episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast is brought to you by Nomadicare. Now, personally, I love Nomadicare. I've used Nomadicare, and I recommend the company to all new travelers. What Nomadicare does is it takes the fear out of getting set up with a bad recruiter, which is the biggest fear that you have jumping into this journey. So they sit down, they interview recruiters, they vet them, get them on a list, and then provide them to you as a free service, as a free recruiter matchmaking service in order to get you started on your journey. Now, usually you only get 2 recruiters going through Nomadicare, but being a listener of the show, you can get 3. So this is how it's going to work. You go to nomadicare.com/Dylan. You will get set up with 3 recruiters to be on your dream team, as well as a guide to get you started on your journey.
Ms. Kay Slane, can you please tell the listeners where you're at in the world right now?
I am in the big town of Grace, Idaho.
Kay, do you have a favorite travel story?
Oh, I do. You know, it has to go back to when we were homeschooling. We went to this. We always, on your days off, you always go out on an adventure or anything to get out of the RV. So we went on a trip to Point Reyes. In fact, this is the picture that's on my homeschool Facebook page. And we looked down, and the guy says, "Oh, it's only 300 steps." Well, going down those 300 steps wasn't bad. But anyway, once we got down there, the caretaker, the ranger there, he said, "Well, son," he says, "aren't you supposed to be in school?" And he says, "I am in school." He says, "I'm on a field trip. I came to see the lighthouse." And so he says, "Well, if you're going to here to learn," he says, "well, let me teach you something." And he actually took him, he was the only one down there, took us and opened up the lighthouse. And we got a full tour of that lighthouse from the bottom to the top. And we got to see how the mirrors worked and the light.
Wow.
And yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and what was so cool about homeschooling is, we did lots of trips like that with Shiloh, but they get to see history. They're not just reading it in a book; they get to see history. So yeah, that's my favorite travel story.
Yeah, that's great. So did you tell them to start using that line every time you guys went somewhere so you get some special treatment?
Yeah. So we can get into, but it's that's, if you just tell people what you're doing, if you're there for something, then they'll take you around and make it educational.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's great. Well, we'll kind of use that to start talking about traveling with your kid and homeschooling and all that. How old was your boy when you started traveling?
He was 14.
14, wow.
So, and he was in junior high. I don't even remember what year he was supposed to graduate. Well, he was in 07, which he was 18. So yeah, so we had him, I think, I had to know what year he was born in. 2003. So yes, he was 14 whenever we started traveling. So we had him for like 4 years. Yeah, till he was 18. We had him for 4 years and doing the travel nursing thing. And the hardest part about that whole deal was getting a driver's license.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So the proper thing to do would come back to Idaho to get his driver's license. But whenever we were in Mississippi, all they wanted to get his driver's license was he had to have a job and he had to have a residence. So the RV park hired him to do maintenance work with him. He helped out on the maintenance crew after school.
Okay.
And so then he had a job. He had an RV, he had a place to stay. And so actually we made him a resident of Mississippi. They would allow him to be a resident of Mississippi at the age of 16. Therefore, because John and I couldn't be a resident because then that would mess up our tax home.
Right.
Status. So, but when we went to Iowa, now Iowa wouldn't accept the fact that he was emancipated like Mississippi, let him do everything on his own. Iowa insisted that one of us go down and get a driver's license.
Okay.
And become a resident. So that didn't happen. So what we did is, just a little secret here to let you know, back through Mississippi, on our way to Florida, we stopped in Tupelo, Mississippi, where he'd gotten his learner's permit, and he took the little gal out for a spin in the Mustang and convertible and got his license, and we went to Florida. So there's a ways of getting around things, but yeah, that's another good one of our stories about just got to make things work.
That's good. That's funny. So you were talking about the benefits of, having your kid and homeschooling, and they actually get to see this like history and they get field trips. What are some other maybe surprising benefits that you had when traveling with your son?
Well, it just, it surprised me on how you get to school and they're at school for I think the kids here are into school from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which seems like an awful long day. But whenever you only have one student, we could get all his stuff done. If he was a good boy that day, we could get his stuff done before noon and then have other educational things to do afterwards, or, go somewhere afterwards, or do a field trip, or learn maybe some extra things. I was actually a science major, so we did a lot of scientific thing and looked at rocks and leaves and all that exciting stuff, and went on road trips. We just take off and, let the GPS take you where to go. We put we were in King City, California, and put the GPS on the shortest route to Big Sur. It was the shortest route. Not necessarily the fastest route, because we went over the mountain, through the woods, and through the military base and all kinds of things. The military base, he said, you must be using your GPS. We're like, yeah. He says, it always takes everybody through here. It's like, okay. So anyway, you just never know. It's homeschooling is yes, it's time consuming, but on the other hand, the experiences that you and your children get is just, you can't replace all that time together. Got it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just the idea that you can travel with your kids, because I almost look at that as being a military brat, where you're following the parents around and you're jumping from base to base. And there's benefits and cons to every decision, but yeah, just having that ability to see the world and see other different places as you're growing up. And maybe that's just the small town kid in me that's like, oh, wow, that'd be so cool. But yeah.
Right. Well, I lived until I moved after 30. I spent 30 years in the Oklahoma Panhandle. The farthest I moved away was 35 miles. And so, yeah, until I was 30 years old and came up here to Idaho and then became a travel nurse. And now we've crisscrossed the United States 3 or 4 times. The only place I haven't been yet is the Northeast.
Got it.
So yeah, and it just depends on, and every place that we went, we stopped at all the historical sites. Anything with history in it, we stopped and took pictures. Yeah. So yeah, it's a different way of living when you have a kid roaming with you, or 14. I guess he really wasn't a kid, but anyway, yeah, we had a blast learning. And he may not know geometry or calculus or anything, but how many times do you use geometry or calculus in everyday living? But we gave him the basics of life. How do you cope with things and just life in general.
Right.
So,
Is there any surprising challenges that you had with trying to raise your kid and travel all over the place and homeschooling?
you know, I don't really have that many challenges. That, of course, homeschooling was kind of easier for me because at one time I did have a certificate to teach junior high science in the state of Oklahoma. Science education is what my bachelor's degree is in. So to me, homeschooling wasn't that big of a deal because I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be a nurse and a teacher, and well, we won't explain all that.
Well, now you're both, so.
Yeah. Anyway, so to me, that wasn't a big deal. I know for those parents who don't feel comfortable with homeschooling, and who don't feel like dragging their kids around, then they make the choice to have them at home with the spouse. And that's not a bad decision either, because a lot of people can make that work, especially with the invention of FaceTime and video chatting and all that. I mean, it's not preferable from really actually getting to see them. But it's not impossible to travel around and go home and see your kids, whenever you can, and your husband whenever you can.
Right.
Some people choose to. The smartest, in which I did this for my first son, to Phoenix, and so, but I would travel there. I'd work 3 on, have 1 off, and have 3 more on. So I've worked that 7, and then I go home for 7 days. Some people do the 6 days in a row. I'm not that courageous. So you probably don't want me as your nurse after 6 days. Some people can do it. I can't. So that's how we did mine. We did 3 and 1 off, and then 3 more, and then I went home for 7. So that's an excellent plan. Pick somewhere that's 2 or 3 hours away, and see if you can do it that way. And no, you're not traveling if you travel 51 miles, because there is no 50-mile rule.
Yeah.
So, but if once you get out there and you stay overnight somewhere, and you stay, 3 nights in a row and then come home 4, that is very acceptable from both the children homeschool point of view and your tax point of view. So that's another way that things can work with having children.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it your own, and there are plenty of nurses who do it every way. So in fact, I have a group called Travel Nursing Newbies, and with that it's a Facebook group. With that group, I definitely have a couple of travelers who I know that one flies home every month to see her husband and their kids. One is now taking her family with her, and she has 4 kids, so it's not impossible with 4 kids.
Yeah.
And then then I just traveled with the one full time. So I have resources for every way you want to do it. I know somebody who's been there and done that. I've been doing this for 15 years. Yeah. I know a few people.
That's amazing. So just to recap on that, Joseph Smith hits on this a lot, but there's actually no 50-mile tax rule, to where if you're 50 miles outside of the radius of your permanent address, that's acceptable for a tax home. Also, what you were saying is that you can work 3 or 4 days straight, be outside of that it's more of a time, like it is the commutable distance an acceptable range to where you can still do it from home. If you're, what you were saying, 2 to 3 hours outside of that range, it should be considered safe. And then working 3 days, coming back home for 4, whatever it is, in order to teach your kid and have that family time. And I imagine that it would be easier today with all the homeschooling than what it was now with all the internet stuff. And I imagine there's some groups out there, or maybe even some organizations that help you basically, homeschool your kid.
Right.
Are there any resources like that you would have outside of the travel newbie group for nurses that you've used or know of for homeschooling?
I do just happen to know the Highway Hypodermics Homeschooling RN Travelers group on Facebook. Listen here, I've got this Facebook group thing mixed out. What a group
on this episode of Pimp My Ride.
Well, I have homeschooling, I have RVs. I don't have a therapy group. Maybe I need therapy because I have a therapy group. But I do know some great therapy groups.
Yeah.
That would be it. Homeschooling RN Travelers. And then usually it goes hand in hand with the RV group because you can travel with the apartment thing, but it is so much easier to travel with kids and animals if you do have the RV. That's a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you run Highway Hypodermics. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I know you have a book out as well. Can you talk about that as well?
Oh, well, yes. And when I started out in 2003, there was one book out there. It was called Hitting the Road by Slane Kearney. And I was starting to find a lot more information than was in that book. So I already had 2 romance novels out by then.
Oh, wow.
So,
I didn't know that. Okay, yeah.
Oh, nobody knows that I used to be a romance author. That's how I started out. I
Very
wrote,
cool.
John and I actually met in the internet back in 1996.
Okay.
And so that was before You've Got Mail. We had Worlds Chat. We met in this little group. So I made my first novel was based on, how we met online. The second one I tried to put in nursing and the romance thing together too. So neither one of those sold too well. But when I started traveling, I gathered up all this information. It's like, why isn't there one place where you can find all this information?
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting information from travel companies. And it's so hard. It was so hard then to get information from travel companies. We didn't have, I wasn't on Delphi forums. I wasn't on anything way back then. So it was very hard to get the information. So finally, I wrote to the travel companies and told them that I had 12 years of nursing experience and I was looking to travel. Can you tell me what benefits you have? So out of all those benefits, then that's where actually it was a top 10 list to begin with.
Got it.
And then it grew to my top 20 list of benefits. So I brought that all into one section.
Okay.
And then I started on my first travel assignment. So I had all that, when I was preparing to go. So then on my first travel assignment, I wrote a journal. Not every day, but, at least once a week I'd write down. And it's so funny now to go back and read my journal notes from 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And what's even funnier is within my first week or two, I got this new recruiter, and his name was Steve.
Okay.
What was so cool about my first assignment is that they switched me recruiters.
Okay.
In about the second or third week. So I got this new recruiter, and I'm like, man, this guy's supposed to be a finance guy. He better know what he's going to do about my finances. And I write this all in my journal. Well, if you want to fast forward 15 years, Steve now has his own travel company.
Wow.
And it's called Atlas MedStaff.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess he does know what he's doing because they're one of the best ones out there now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of funny. Steve Ryan was my first recruiter back then. So yeah, it started out. I go back and I read that book, and we get a lot of chuckles out of it. So, but this year, I revamp them every 2 to 3 years. So this year will be the every 2. So we'll put it out at the conference for 2018. At least that's what my plan is. This year, my publisher has stepped aside. Well, within the 15 years, my editor passed away had a stroke and passed away. And now my publisher has her kids are all out of the house, so she's doing a different thing nowadays, which I don't blame her. So this one I'm having to do by myself.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that it comes out in September. You know, I've done the publishing for 15 years, but this year may be a little interesting, at least for me, in getting things out. But yes, I really, really, truly plan on having this done by September. So yeah, it will be Highway Hypodermics Travel Nursing 2019. So we put it out at the end of 18, where it's all brand new in 18. It looks all brand new in 19. Then it's only a year old in 2021, or in the next year. And then we publish another one in 20.
Got it.
So and that'll be the 21.
Got it.
So so that's what I'm planning this year. But I'm not going to put out a bunch of junk either. So if I don't get to it this year, then we may hold off for a year and maybe do it next year instead. At this point, I don't know. So, but yeah, the plans are to have this next one come out for the Travelers Conference.
Very cool. Very cool.
September. So, I got a lot of work between now and then.
Is there a romance section in that book as well?
No, there's not.
Oh, no.
I know. I make you one just for you, Dylan.
Hey, yeah. I'll get a sign.
No, there's not. We've gone. I do much better about writing about travel nursing now.
That's
write
awesome.
about travel nursing, do videos about travel nursing. Have my own YouTube channel. I got to do it. I'm actually at home in the home office. My husband's been having some health problems, so we had to come home until I can get him fixed, because he can't get in and out of the RV. That kind of prevents me from going. So, but anyway, we're just gonna have a good old time here, and
that's awesome.
And this summer be doing some videos. Got a lot of things planned. Got to renew the book. And of course, I seems like every morning on Facebook answering questions. And usually by the end of the night, I've also got a whole list of questions. So I stay pretty available to travelers, that you can contact me just about any time of the day. Not so much at night now, since I am actually a real person who sleeps at night and stays awake during the daytime. It's like, wow, first time in 25 years.
Yeah. As a PT, I don't have to worry about that too much, but my youngest.
I know. If I was gonna do this again, I would have done PT or ST or OT. Because you know what? You guys don't have to work weekends, except maybe occasional. You don't have to work nights.
My youngest sister, she just got done with working nights, and seeing her go through that and just how it affected her schedule was so eye-opening to me, because I thought I had understood it through all my nursing friends, but when my sister actually was going through it, then I really got to see how that affected her daily life. And
and people think that we just take naps during the day, but no, that's our 8 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
And we get on our, it's a lot easier for me. Actually, I didn't mind working nights, and on my nights off, I would stay up and do Highway Hypodermic stuff, and I do my writing, I do my videos. And so it was actually no problem for me, because I always had something to do and was fairly quiet and wouldn't wake, anybody up in the trailer or in the RV park. But nights is definitely a different beast, and daytime too. It's just, it's bright outside now, and all my snow's melted.
That's great. Okay, what is something that you know now that you wish you would have known starting out with this whole travel journey?
Oh man, that's a long time to think back. Um, I just wish there would have been more, I just really wish that there would have been more options for us to learn,
Mm-hmm.
like back then in 2003. And now you type in travel nursing and it comes up with 20 godzillion resources for travel nursing or travel therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it was when I started out. The only problem with having that many resources is that sometimes it's really hard to tell who's actually telling you the truth, and who's got and because there's so many things and I just wish that now that there would be some clear point of, this is how it really is.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody now. So looking back, I don't know if it was worse to have little information, or is it worse having a lot of information and not knowing where the truth lies and who
Right.
is actually providing you what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of us are different. All of us travel for different ways. So you need to find a resource, and that's what's great about the conference is that it's for travelers by travelers. My Highway Hypodermics site, it's by a traveler. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've had the apartments. I've had the the hometown courts or whatever, the extended stays.
Yeah.
I've done the RV thing. I've done the motel thing. It's one thing to find a resource with somebody who can give you the correct information. So, that would be the biggest difference that I see from now till, 15 years ago is that, there's that big of a difference in information. So, yeah, it's just, but it's great to have all these resources and, figure out what is right for you. What may be right for someone else may not be right for you. But when it comes all down to it, you need to find a resource that is going to align with your values, your morals, your standards, whatever that is. You need to be flexible and adaptable. I know people this is just one example. We tell you to be flexible and adaptable, but then on the other side, there's people telling you that, no, you're a travel nurse. You can tell them, they need you more than you need them. You can tell them that you want this block schedule and you want these patients. Well, if you've been a traveler for a while, then yes, you can. But if you're starting out, you can't do that, So, it's just, where do people get their information? Where do they learn at? I don't know where I went to. I don't remember what the question was.
You're good. You're good.
It just amazes me the changes that we've had in the last 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. And what you were talking about, there's something called the internet ages. And so we're coming out of the information age of the internet to where there is all this information coming on. And now it's getting to where there's so much information out there and anybody can put out information. But now we're into the knowledge age where you want to find those individuals who know what they're talking about, who's been doing it for
right.
Been able to, find the truth in all this and not pull the blanket over your eyes or the sheep over the wool or whatever the saying is.
Right. So, and the amazing amount of companies that are out there.
Yeah.
We used to have maybe 200 to 300. Now we used to say that there was 400. There's probably 500, even 700 out there.
Wow.
Wouldn't surprise me. It's just amazing. If you go on the Joint Commission's website and see all the companies that has them listed per state, or used to.
Mhm.
It's amazing the travel companies are just popping out of nowhere.
Wow.
You know, so, and another thing that's become different, even in the last years, we've kind of hit this down slope again.
Mhm.
I would say the economy hasn't tanked to the 2008 level, but it's nowhere like it used to be when I was in California. Whenever just in a year's worth of time, you know, I went from making top dollar to about medium dollar as a traveling house supervisor. It was just amazing the dip that I took and I switched from California to Washington. So, I mean, that had parts to do with it, but it was like $40 less.
Wow.
You know, an hour,
Yeah.
$30. But yeah, it's just amazing how things have changed, and you know, Highway Hypodermics, and with you doing all these shows also, you know, that's and some really good groups on Facebook, then that's quality information. And you know, Travelers Conference, you get quality information there also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and you're right. We used to have information over, you know, just we didn't have any information.
Right.
Then we had a lot of information, and now we're getting down to brass tacks and what is actually worth its grain of salt, you know.
Right. Absolutely. Kay, what is something that you have bought, whether it be like a physical item or an app, that you feel like you couldn't travel without?
I didn't buy him, but my husband. You know, I thought about that question, and it's like, oh my gosh, what? I don't think there's anything that I've bought or anything. If you're going to be in the RV park, though, you want to get you a booster for your internet.
Okay.
Either that, or you need to use the internet in between 2 and 5 a.m. Love the people that I worked with, but I had absolutely no cell phone service at the RV.
Got it.
Because everywhere we've been, you know, if we can't get good internet, well, we just plug into our hotspots.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have good internet, and we had absolutely no phone service. So, you know, it was a tough situation. I don't know how many times my marketing guy, he laughed at me. He says, "Kay, we just can't use this." And I'm like, I know we can't use this because my connection wasn't strong enough. And so, you know, you and I would never be able to do this.
Right.
In the RV park. So yeah, a good RV booster. But no, it's, you know, John and I have been traveling together for the whole 15 years. I can't do it without him. You know, that's why I've had to. He's got a bum hip, and we got to get that fixed so we can go back out on the road again.
Yeah.
Man, I've had to do my own laundry lately. I haven't had to wash dishes. He pretty much can do that, and cleaning house. And so yeah, if you want to tell me one thing that I can't live without, oh yeah, did I mention laundry? I have to do laundry. So yeah, that would be the one thing that I can't travel without. My husband.
Sweet. Yeah. And then, are there any books, podcasts, personalities, or movies that you recommend?
Gosh, books. Well, of course, Highway Hypodermics, Travel Nursing 2017. That is, you can find that on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that good stuff. I think since we've been out, as in when it first was published a couple of years ago, we have never, if we have, is we've gone off and then come back in, but we've always been in the top 100 for medical references.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
So it is the best-selling travel nursing book out there. And even though, you know, it's kind of like the conference, even though we use travel nursing, in fact, as far as I'm aware of, I am the only book that has traveling therapy along with the nursing, because I go through OT, PT,
Yeah.
SC.
Mhm.
I have an LPN section. I don't know if I have a CNA section, but if not, I really need to add that too, because that's all becoming a reality nowadays.
Wow.
Now there's a new one out by a traveling PT. You know that there's a book just for, but I think hers is on travel healthcare professionals.
Got it.
And it just came out. So otherwise than that, there is that one. But otherwise than that, I'm the only book that has of course, the homeschooling and the RV stuff. Been there, done that. It's not just what I found out in a pamphlet somewhere, or on a Facebook page, or.
Mhm.
So the other things that I have a chapter on. Oh, we have the international travelers stuff. On the international travel stuff, Aaron Highfield, he's in fact, we went to the same little school in the Oklahoma Panhandle, and not together, 2 different times, but yeah. So Aaron helps me with that one. He's done all kinds of international travel. Cool. In fact, I don't know when he's in the country and when he's out, because 50-50. And then Joseph Smith, he does my tax chapter. So, you got the best going on there. The whole book is nothing but experience. And then in the back of the book, we have profiles from all the travel companies, or from all the travel companies that I can get to give me a profile. I'm not going to make up, information about these companies. Yeah. It's all information straight from the companies, usually either their marketing person or the CEO. Yeah. I don't know how many CEOs that I have that actually write those profiles, but I know the CEOs and the marketing people. So, if you need help getting to the top or finding out what you really need, we can make it happen. I used to have one of my director nurses tell me, just make it happen. So we can make it happen if you need help. But yeah, it's just a great resource. I don't say that just coming from me. I say that from the readings out there. And so yeah, personalities, podcasts. I don't really listen to any. All my podcasts are speaking podcasts and writing podcasts.
Got it. You talk about those too. Is there any writing podcasts you listen to? It's like your go-to?
No, not really, and I don't know why. No, I went to this. I went to the Business Boutique last year in Nashville, Tennessee. And she teaches women how to make a living at what they love. So I went to that conference, and a couple of the ones, I started following a couple of people from there. And it's and this is great information for a travel company. You want to learn how to brand your company, go to storybrand.com, look up Donald Miller. He's great at doing that. Of course, I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. In fact, I have one of those Facebook groups too. I have a Dave Ramsey support group.
Got it.
I'm not affiliated with Dave Ramsey, but what we do is we support nurses and therapists who are trying to follow his 7 baby steps and to get out of debt. You know what? There's really nothing greater out there than traveling and being debt free, and having your RV paid off, having your truck paid off. Of course, my truck is a 2002. It's a little older, but it's been hasn't let me down yet. But there's nothing like being completely debt free, and when you go to these assignments, then you have a little bit of spending money to do, all of your stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Look up my Dave Ramsey group too. I listen to his podcast. I listen to Ray Edwards. Ray Edwards is another one. He's an inspirational copywriter. Oh, I guess that is a writing one, huh? He's a copywriter, so he's really, really interesting about how to say what you want to say in very little time.
Got it. Very cool. I'll definitely, all those will be in the show notes as well for the listeners that are interested in following those. I know I've had several guests on that have followed Dave Ramsey as well, and it's really helped them to pay off their student debt. Kay, is there anything else that you wanted to say to the listeners?
The only thing that I have on my mind right now is come to the conference, because I'm knee deep in conference stuff now. It's the summer. Everybody just comes for 3 days and has a good time, and this is like having a baby every year. We spend 9 months prepping. We do take October, November, and December off, and then once January hits, we're at it again. And registration's coming up April the 1st, so we're really looking forward to this year. We've got more big plans. So
That's great. All right. Well, Kay, if the listeners had any questions for you, where should they go in order to ask them?
They can come to highwayhypodermics.com. My email address is that's highway, HIGHWAYHYPO @yahoo.com.
Okay.
And that gets you, I check that email the most often. Anything for the Travelers Conference to me, especially if you want to look at being a volunteer, you can reach me at k@travelersconference.com.
Okay.
That one's a little bit longer, but it's easier to remember because it's just k@Travelers Conference.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And for the listeners as well, Kay is a part of the New Medical Nomads group online. So if you have any questions and you're a member there, you can reach out to her for any questions there as well. If you
I'm in just about all of them.
Yeah, you're on there quite often. It's good.
I am. It's great though. I have a good time. Teaching nurses what to do. Kind of I get to use my bachelor's degree now.
Yeah. Teacher and a nurse.
And a nurse. There you go.
For the listeners, the official launches that I do are on the New Medical Nomads podcast Facebook page. So you can look up for that when I do the official launches. If you want the advanced or the early access to the episodes, you can follow us on iTunes, follow us on YouTube. That's where I launch them first. And so you'll get them about a week or two ahead of the game. And then, Kay, thank you so much for joining.
It's my pleasure.
And listeners, if you if you learned anything from these episodes, it's probably going to be a two-parter. Hit the like button, comment below, share it. That would greatly help us reach the people that we're trying to reach with this content. And so I absolutely appreciate all you listeners taking your time out of the day to come on and join us. And Kay, thanks again. And then you have your travels out in Idaho.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. We could go for a couple more hours.
We'll have to schedule another one.
Just need to do the Kay and Dylan show.
Yeah, hey, that's perfect to it.
Therapy and the best of allied health and nursing.